Welcome to the Explainer. So today, we're going to unpack Europe's massive, and I mean massive, bet to become a global tech superpower. It's a really fascinating story about a major shift in strategy, from writing the rules of the game to writing the checks.
You know, for a long time, the European Union was basically the world's digital policeman. Thanks to landmark regulations like GDPR, it set the global standard for data privacy and for how big tech companies were supposed to behave. It was without a doubt the undisputed heavyweight champion of regulation.
But here's the thing, was it actually winning? The hard truth is, no. While Europe was so busy being the referee, this huge technology and investment gap was just getting wider and wider with the United States. And that forced a pretty dramatic change in thinking.
So what exactly was this rude awakening? Well, at its core, the problem was a crippling lack of homegrown capital for Europe's most promising companies.
See, Europe was actually fantastic at creating startups, but it was terrible at helping them grow into giants. By their 10th year, European innovators had raised only half the capital of their US counterparts, and that forced a staggering 80% of them to look abroad for funding, which usually meant packing up and moving to the US. We're talking about a massive entrepreneurial brain drain.
And the scale of this challenge was just immense. I mean, look at these numbers. We're talking about a 70 billion euro gap in late-stage venture capital every single year. That's not a crack in the system, it's a chasm. And this is the chasm Europe realized it had to close if it wanted to truly compete, not just regulate.
So realizing that rules alone weren't going to build any tech giants, Europe decided to fight fire with fire, or in this case, fight capital with a massive cannon of its own. And that's where we get the tech bazooka.
This quote right here really captures that fundamental shift in thinking. It's the moment Europe decided to stop just being the referee and start putting its own players on the field, backed by some serious financial muscle. It's a move from defense to offense, and they're even starting to channel venture capital into areas that used to be totally off limits, like dual use and defense technologies.
The first shot from this bazooka is being fired by the European Investment Bank Group. In 2025 alone, it's planning to deploy a historic 100 billion euros in new financing, with a huge chunk of that being prioritized for tech innovation, security, and the green transition.
And look, that 100 billion from the EIB, that's just the start. It's part of a much bigger plan called Tech EU, which is the largest innovation financing program in European history. And the goal here? To mobilize €250 billion by 2027 for critical sectors like artificial intelligence and digital infrastructure.
And to directly attack that scale-up gap we were just talking about, there's the European Tech Champions Initiative. The next phase, ETCI 2.0, is basically a giant fund that invests in other venture capital funds. The goal is to grow it to around 20 billion euros, which in turn could unlock up to 80 billion in total investments for Europe's fastest-growing companies.
Okay, so with all this capital finally starting to flow, who's actually stepping up? Is this strategy creating the champions that Europe so desperately needs? Well, let's take Mistral AI. Founded in Paris by researchers who actually left Meta and Google DeepMind, it's the poster child for Europe's new ambition. In just over 2 years, its valuation has absolutely exploded, from $260 million to a projected $14 billion. This is the perfect example of that reverse brain drain, top-tier talent coming back home to build something new.
But Mistral isn't just a copycat. It's playing a totally different game. Its strategic commitment to open-weight, transparent models is a direct contrast to the closed, black box approach we see in Silicon Valley. For Europe's super-regulated industries, think finance, healthcare, being able to look under the hood isn't just a nice-to-have, it's an absolute must.
And hey, it's not just Mistral. A whole ecosystem is rising up. You've got Germany's Aleph Alpha focusing on sovereign AI for government and business. DeepL is a world leader in translation. Even the big established giants are jumping in, with Finland's Nokia developing 6G and the Netherlands' ASML making a massive strategic investment in Mistral.
Okay, but firing the bazooka is the easy part. Hitting the target, that's much harder. Despite all this incredible momentum, Europe still faces some pretty formidable challenges, and yeah, some of them are of its own making.
The first major hurdle is digital sovereignty. I mean, you can build the world's best AI, but if it's all running on someone else's servers, are you really in control? Right now, an estimated 80% of Europe's digital infrastructure is controlled from outside its borders. The ambition is to secure at least 10% of the world's computing power on European soil, and that is a massive, massive undertaking.
But maybe the biggest battle is the one Europe fights with itself. First, you've got this fragmented market. Trying to scale a business across 27 different sets of rules is a total nightmare. Then there's the regulatory friction. Laws like the AI Act and Digital Markets Act are powerful, sure, but they've also caused companies like Meta and Apple to withhold new AI features from Europe and have sparked some serious transatlantic tension, with some US officials basically calling it an economic war.
So, with the money flowing and champions rising, but with these huge hurdles still in the way, what does the path to victory actually look like? Well, the roadmap to creating Europe's first trillion-dollar tech company is pretty clear. It means getting a true single market. We're talking one set of rules, one fast-track visa for global talent, one unified capital market that actually channels European savings into European innovation, and of course, one sovereign infrastructure to run it all on.
The tech bazooka has been fired, and you can bet the shockwaves are being felt from Silicon Valley to Shanghai. The ambition is huge, the capital is flowing, and a new generation of champions is rising. But really, it all boils down to one single question. Can Europe get out of its own way, unite its markets, and streamline its rules to finally let those champions run free? Now that is the trillion-dollar question.